I'm excited to introduce screenwriter and songwriter Kate Hewlett, who wrote the film The Swearing Jar, which premiered at Toronto International Film Festival in 2022 and was nominated by Writers Guild's Award for Best Feature Film Screenplay. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you so much for having me.
So why don't we start off with, what was your road into writing?
So I started as an actor, and I would say I always wrote. My whole life, I wrote poetry and I wrote little stories, and I wouldn't even say short stories, but little stories. And I always had that as an outlet, but I never considered it as a career until I went to the National Theatre School in Montreal as an actor. And I took a playwriting course there, and it was just like vomiting out of me all the time. And I actually started working on Swearing Jar when I was there. So there are certain scenes that were written in 2003 that ended up in the movie.
Wow. And this movie started out as a play.
It did.
And can you talk me through why did you decide to write it as a play?
I started in theater, and that was my world. I didn't really know about TV writing or film writing until much, much later. And I guess the characters, I started by writing the characters, and the whole process was 20 years. I would not recommend it. Creatively enjoyable, but, not the most economical. So I started building the characters, figuring out who they were. I started writing scenes. It originally was a play about a couple struggling to have a baby, and it changed and changed and changed. And I found the story through writing it, if that makes any sense. And I always in my head imagined it as a movie, but that's how I see things in my brain. I don't often picture them on stage. I picture them as real life. And so I imagined it as a film, but I didn't think I should make this as a film until the play was done and had been staged many times and published. And every time I watched the play, I was like, it's not quite what I want it to be, and I don't know why. And then when we started working on it as a movie, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, because play, very different from a movie. Maybe we'll just dive into the movie part of it. When did you decide, at what point did you go, okay, I'm going to write this as a film? And then how long did it take you to finally complete the draft? Or were you pretty quick to completing it because it was a play, so it was easier to just flesh it out into the script?
It's interesting because the film script in the end, what's on the screen is actually very, very similar to the play in the end, because the director pulled back on the supporting characters quite a lot. So the play is just Carrie, Simon, Owen, and Bev. And that's it. And when you watch the movie, it really does feel like they're the ones who are speaking, and they're the ones who have the focus and all of that. But sorry, which question am I answering at this moment? I'm fine.
No. I was just wondering, at what point did you decide to start writing it as a film? And then how long did it take you to do that?
Right. So I actually started working on the screenplay in 2014, I would say. I started adapting it into a screenplay, and it went through many different iterations, because at first I tried to go way off what the play was and make it as cinematic as I could. And then I ended up pulling it way back. So I guess it took me about 5 years, I would say, to write it and be happy with what I had, and write more music as well. I wrote more songs for the feature. And what else changed? I guess I added to the relationship between Owen and Carrie. That grew. And the mother character grew, and I got to explore the daughter, and I got, people that we talked about in the play but didn't get to meet. So it was a long process, but funnily enough, again, it ended up being quite similar to the play.
I'm not real familiar with plays and how they're written. Are they similar to a screenplay written in the same format, or a little different?
Different format, yeah. It's funny how the formatting put me off for a long time. Like I was like, oh, I can't write a movie because I don't know how to physically write a movie. And once I downloaded this free TV and film writing program, I was like, oh, it's kind of easy. Not easy, but easy to format the thing. And then I bought Final Draft, and so then the formatting is, it's the look of it on the page, really, that's different. And also the biggest difference is for me in theater, you can have one scene that's the entire play. In film and TV, you want the scenes to be generally less than 3 pages. So that was a challenge, was cutting into those scenes and figuring out, is there a time cut here? Is it a totally different scene? Are we just jumping from location to location? But a lot of the conversations are the same, if that makes sense.
How did you come up with the title, The Swearing Jar? I get that it's in the film. Did it have a deeper meaning?
For me, the swearing is about, so I guess it's a few things, just trying to improve yourself, trying to become a new version of you, which is really what the story is about with her, with Carrie. I think also swearing, as opposed to, the swearing like shit and all that, that there's also this concept of vowing, a vow, swearing a truth. And it sort of tied into the lying. Yeah, there's a lot of lies and what a lie does to your life and all of that. So I thought that all tied in nicely. What you're talking about without spoiling it, like about, there is this sense that when you're watching it, you really feel like you're watching someone cheating on her husband. And that was very intentional. And it's the same in the play, because I really want the audience to be judging her and to be like, what are you fucking doing? And what, why are you doing that? And that was really important to me, because I think if you know what's going on, you don't see her the same way. You go into it a different way. And I really wanted her, she's judging herself. She feels like a bad person. She feels like she's cheating. And I wanted the audience to very much be on that journey with her.
But then with Kathleen Turner's character, which is amazing, she's an amazing actress. I love.
Yeah, I still can't believe that happened.
What? How did you get her?
She read the script. We were going to her agency for somebody to play Carrie, and the agent said, my client is passing on this, but can I send it to Kathleen Turner for this other part? And we were like, yes. And she liked the script. That was it. She was the first person who was actually attached.
Well, and I love how she talks about like kind of the theme through the movie is affair in one sense or another, especially like with Kathleen Turner's character where she says, well, my husband left me. And we find out later, and I won't say what happened, but this theme of judgment, how we judge people for their actions and or what we think is happening, and we have no idea the
definitely
actuality. And I loved how you played on that throughout the film in different ways with the different characters, which is betrayal. Like you said, it's the lies, it's the betrayal.
And the fact that we all do that, right? Like we all tell, as much as we want to be honest, we all tell small lies. And then sometimes there are big lies, and sometimes there are other betrayals. And, everyone's so busy judging other people and instead of looking at what they're doing and their own behavior. So that was important to me too. Like, she made him a promise that she broke, and he made her a promise that he broke. And, it's just, I think that's the journey in the movie for the main character, is she's looking at that. She's looking at why he did what he did. And did she give him permission in a way to do that? So yeah, talking around it, but yeah, I'm fascinated by that. I think betrayal is one of the big things that fascinated me. And another one was, what happens if there really is only one person for you? What happens if that doesn't work out for whatever reason and there really isn't another one? That was where it all started, actually. And then, there's hope. Fortunately, there was like a more hopeful side of it, of like, maybe there is another one. Maybe I do have two loves of my life. Maybe yeah, and I don't know that that's answered and that's intentional, but that's where it all started. Really, was that idea of like, what happens if it doesn't work out and you lose that one person that you're meant to be with.
Yeah. And also, when somebody else is presenting themselves, can you let
Yeah.
them in? And why do we hold ourselves back from love
Yes.
again? Or another type of love?
Yeah, and it's never the same, right? It's never going to be the
Yeah.
same, and it's hard not to compare. So I haven't lost a partner like that, but you know, there are ways in which I relate to having to get over this thing that you saw as perfect, you know?
I thought it was really well done. So how involved were you in the swearing jar once the film was completed? And can you just tell us how it got from, okay, this is the film, to somebody saying, here's some money, do the film?
So when the screenplay was written, I teamed up with a director first, who ended up not being the director who directed the film. But she and I were the first two that really went for it with this particular script. And we took it to a number of different producers. And the producer that we felt the most excited about and who was the most excited about the project also happened to be married to my brother. So that's convenient. And she really wanted to have her first feature under her belt. She had done lots of other producing, but this was her first feature on her own. So we teamed up with her. And then along the way, you know, it's so hard to get a movie made in Canada. And as the project went through so many different rejections, and we couldn't get funding multiple times from telefilm, you know, like we got rejected so many times, and it was just like lots and lots of rejection, and we had multiple different casts along the way. And then we lost our director because she just exploded and she moved to LA. And, you know, then we had another director who was amazing and she couldn't do it in the, like, it just, you know, it just takes so long to make it happen. We had so many different versions of this with that would have been completely different movies. Finally, when it happened, that was with Jane Lohman, who was the producer, and this director that she found, and who I hardly had any decision making there. But I'm so happy that with what she did, I'm so happy with the visual element that she brought to it, because I don't see things that way. I hear the words and I know the rhythm and I know all of that, but she saw the pictures and she made it so beautiful. I thought it was so beautifully shot, and we bring different things to it, you know. And so I wasn't highly involved. I was very involved with the casting, and that was a really fun part of it, I would say.
Well, let's just stop there with some of the casting that
Yeah.
you had here. You had Adelaide Clemens, who was amazing voice, amazing singer. Patrick Adams, best known from Suits. I mean, he was great. Kathleen Turner, amazing. And then Douglas Smith, who played Owen. I mean, he was so cute and adorable and so nice.
Yeah.
He was great. I mean, you really casted very well.
Yeah.
How did you find all
absolutely.
of them?
I mean, honestly, we had 4 different casts. I could tell you, you know, I get in trouble, but I could tell you all these different versions that we had and how different they would have all been. And the actress that we had attached was amazing for so long. And then through scheduling, that didn't work. Adelaide won the part by auditioning, and she's a very successful, very talented actress. And I was honored that she did a tape for us. And, you know, she's Australian. She was doing an American accent. She was singing on camera for the first time. Everyone who watches it say she channeled me, but I don't see that. But she apparently channeled me, and we didn't know each other. So that's kind of, I guess that's just the rhythm of the dialogue that she got. But she's beautiful. She did the most beautiful job. So yeah, that was just through casting, through Nicole Hillier-Ford here, and a wonderful casting director in Los Angeles. And they just worked with Jane, the producer, and we had self-tapes from lots of people. Patrick J. Adams and Douglas Smith were both offer only, I believe, so they didn't audition. So that's terrifying because you're like, I know they're good, but are they good at this character? And Kathleen Turner obviously didn't audition. So yeah, Adelaide was the only one of all those people who we actually got to see what she wanted to do with the character. And then when we did the first read through, which was on Zoom because COVID, that was a highlight to just hear everyone. And I couldn't believe, I mean, Kathleen Turner was hilarious right off the bat. And everyone was so good. Patrick J. Adams broke my heart in this movie. And I just thought I loved working with him as well because he asked so many questions, and there were things where he's like, I don't understand why he's doing this. I don't understand why, he's kind of being a dick in this situation, and and he asked all those questions. And because I had sat with this material for so long, I knew the answers and I knew why it was the way it was. And it was just wonderful having those conversations with him. And I just thought he did such a beautiful job with it because he was so funny and so charming. But there was clearly always something else going on with him.
Yes. I felt like there's a secret going on with him and I can't figure out what it is. But, later it reveals itself. But I thought that was really, he played it so well. Yeah.
Yeah, he did. And it's hard. It's a hard part and I've watched in every theatrical production I was involved with, I've watched those actors struggle and do beautiful work, but struggle with getting there because it's not really their story. It's her story. And we're seeing her perception of what's going on, but he has to make sense of his story within that,
Mm-hmm. Right. You got to be involved in casting. Was the director, Lindsay McKay, not involved yet? Or was she there too? And
she was highly, highly involved. Yeah, she ran all the auditions. Sorry. It was those auditions were sort of orchestrated by the producer and the casting director, but all the decisions were made by Lindsay and Jane, I would say. And then I weighed in on everything. And I think, there wasn't a single decision I wasn't happy with. I really, really liked who they went with in the end. But no, Lindsay was very involved. She worked with a ton of actors in their auditions. And she always met with people and chatted with them, saw if she had a rapport with them before agreeing to work with them, which is really important.
Smart. I didn't even think about that because you never know on set how, are they going to take direction or not?
Totally. And it was a short shoot. I think they shot in like 19 days or something in Hamilton. And so Adelaide and Patrick, that rapport was instant. I mean, they shot all of their scenes, I think, first. And it was just all of them were just such professionals. It was really amazing. So to answer your earlier question, I was supposed to be on set, but my dumb baby came 3 weeks early. And so I missed the whole thing. And I think, it's a good thing for everyone involved, not just because I quite like the baby, but also Lindsay, I think it was good for me to not be on set. I have all the lines in my head and how they should sound. And, if someone changes a word, that sort of thing, I'm with this particular script, quite precious because everything has taken so long to choose. And I feel like I would have gotten in the way sometimes. And in the end, every decision she made was the right one. So not that any, like a lot of words didn't change, but I think she let them explore. And I think that's really important. So I'm glad I wasn't there being controlling.
Yeah. And what did you feel like the end? Did you feel like, I'm sure you were happy with the end result of the film. Were there any parts where you were feeling like, wow, this was even better than I conceived this?
Yes. Yeah. I think there were several places where during the shooting of it, I watched dailies sometimes, and I was sometimes afraid that it wasn't funny enough because the script it really is a comedy until it's not a comedy. And I was afraid that it was too depressing or that it was kind of tipping the fact that it might go somewhere else. And I was worried about all of that. And then when I saw it, I just think she nailed it. She nailed it because it's just honest all the way through. And you go on that journey with them, and you buy it when it shifts. You buy it, and on stage, what used to happen with the theater production was that the audience would be laughing their asses off, and then it would turn, and sometimes it worked like gangbusters, and sometimes it didn't work. It felt like we signed up for a comedy, and now you're trying to force feed us a tragedy, and we don't want it. And there was like one of the worst review I ever got said that it was manipulative, and they didn't go on, like they didn't like that it was manipulative. And it's interesting, right? With the film, you control what they're seeing. It's not changing based on the vibe in the room. It's been created, the story exists, and you watch it, you witness it. And I think it works way better.
Yeah. No, the flow of it, the intertwining, the different characters and storylines, and then how you beautifully brought it all together and gave it meaning. Because at first you're watching it going, what is going on? Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then later you find out some other things. I just love the twist and how you took us on a journey that we thought was this way, and then find out that it's a reversal and it's something different. And then it just made me have to think about a lot of the stuff, and just like, oh my God, that meant this and this meant that. And it was powerful, very powerful, which made me want to bring you on and talk about that,
It's funny because I can always tell when someone hasn't watched the whole thing or hasn't read the whole thing, because of the way that it changes, right? And there have been times, and there have been comments. I can't remember what it was, but there's one interview I did, and I was like, well, this is hilarious, because they definitely didn't watch the whole thing, because they were like, it's so funny. I found it such a funny comedy, and they didn't, and I was like, which is okay. I'm happy it's funny, but they definitely didn't watch the whole thing. And I've also there are certain comments online or reviews or whatever where you're like, I don't think you watched the whole thing.
Yeah. I remember thinking, I've got to watch this again to see it again, because you have to go back and see where the nuances were. Like, where did I not catch this? But I thought it was really well done. And your main character, Adelaide, has a beautiful voice. Did you write the songs for her?
No, I wrote the songs for me. I wrote the character, and I never do this, but I wrote the character for me to play. And then I was way too old by the time we actually got it made. I was way too old, but I wrote the songs for myself, and then as it went on, I wrote them for various productions or various directors. If they'd say, like, we need a song here, can you do another duet? Or we need like our, like May the 4th was a later addition in the theater process. May the 4th was added later, and they wanted kind of like a stirring anthem that was with both characters. And then for the movie, I wrote the song Slowly with is this a spoiler? Oh, when Owen and Carrie get together for the first time, there's like candles, and it goes back and forth between them and the concert. That song was written for the movie. And a couple of other ones. Oh, the swearing song was written for the movie. That's not in the play. Then the little song that Owen sings to her in the park, that's a new one as well that I wrote for the film.
Oh, wow.
So the way that I write a song is I write the lyrics, I come up with the melody, I record my voice, I record all the harmonies also with my voice, like, so I find the chords that way, and then I give the melody and the lyrics to a proper musician who can accompany them, and they do that. So Chris Stanton, who is credited with co-writing 2 of the songs with me for the movie, we worked on the play together many, many, many times. He played Owen, like every single time we did the play, he played Owen, and he did all the arrangements of the guitar for all of those versions. And then those arrangements, were heavily influential to the film as well.
Wow. It's so amazing when somebody's multi-talented, acting, songwriting, writing, so many things that you do. And you predominantly write for television. Do you want to talk about your latest project that you're working on, Sing Out? And tell us where.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
tell us a little about what it's about and then where you're at with it.
Yes. So I'm working on a comedy called Sing Out for AMC Studios and Shaftesbury. They are involved now on the Canada side of things. And my writing partner, his name is Andrew Musselman. He's an old friend of mine, and we are having a blast. And he once joined a gay choir when we were roommates, and he was telling me lots of stories about it. And I was like, he was talking about like the process of coming out and how it was helping him come out and find his true self and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah. This needs to be a television show. Let's write it. So the show is about a lesbian choir and a gay choir that are forced to merge. And it's all the infighting within the LGBTQ community is sort of what we're doing, like a Waiting for Guffman with choirs. So it's very, very fun. But it also does delve into the, issues within the community and some deeper, there's some deeper stuff going on there as well. And the process of like owning your identity and all of that.
Yeah. When you wrote me about that, I was thinking, oh my God, I hope it's a comedy because this would be hilarious. Yeah. As you said, Waiting for Guffman. Yeah. So so are you thinking it more mockumentary style?
It's not mockumentary style. No, it's definitely, there's like the fourth wall is not broken. And it's shot like it's going to be shot like a regular comedy, fast paced and sort of gritty, a little gritty. And, we're still in the writing process. We're still developing it. So we'll see if we actually get to move forward, but we've written 2 episodes and then we wrote Greg's, of the guitars wrote the music to a hymn that we wrote the lyrics to for one of the episodes, and we submitted that as well. So we're having a lot of fun.
Oh, that's great. What is your writing process? How do you I guess if you're writing for television, you're really writing in the style of whatever the show is. So you have a format that you have to stick to versus this the Swearing Jar, your first feature film, where you have to come up with the ideas. So how is it writing for other people's shows?
I love writing for other people's shows. Actually, I really enjoy having to take on somebody else's voice, it's sort of like acting, right? Like you're taking on their voices and their style and their sense of humor. And I wrote on Corner Gas Animated, and like I never write that style of comedy, but it was so much fun to figure that out. And every show is so different. I've done teen shows, I've done like a little bit of darker stuff, and I really enjoy it. The other thing I love is that it's so collaborative because you're in a writer's room and you're all working together and bouncing ideas off each other, and that's my absolute favorite part of it. I can't stand being in a room by myself trying to figure out a show. That is not enjoyable to me. I really need to have other brains.
How much time do you have to write an episode?
So when a TV show is up and running, you have to write pretty quickly. It's sometimes you have to write a draft in a few days if you're in trouble. If the train is catching up, then you have, sometimes you have to do a rewrite, and that's very last minute. But in general, you have like about a week to write the first draft, I would say. Maybe, about a week to write the first draft. And then you get tons of notes, and then you rewrite, and then you get tons of notes, and then you rewrite, and then, it's constantly changing. So,
So do you write, I know that you collaborate and you write in a writer's group, but how does that work out in the script? I mean, do you take on this, is there the lead writer and then you take all the input and then go and write it? Or how does that work with other writers?
Okay, so basically the way that it works is you have a showrunner who is in charge of the room. They're running the room, and they have final say on everything with the scripts, but they assign certain scripts to different writers. So they would say to me, okay, you're writing episode 102, but we all break the story together. So we all figure out what the story is as a group. And that's the fun part. That's the brainstorming and figuring out what happens in act 1 and act 2 and where the plot twists are and all of that. So you do all of that together and, joke pitches, all of that. And you just you'll have someone who's writing it all down and taking notes. And then you go off on your own and you do the actual writing on your own. And then you bring your script and everyone gives you notes on your script, with the showrunner being the person who makes the ultimate decision about things. Then you go off again and you write on your own. So that's sort of the way that it normally goes. Sometimes when things are up and running, this is something I didn't learn until I actually became a writer. The person who gets credit for the script is just the person who got paid for the script, but they sometimes didn't write it. So it makes awards and things very interesting because there are episodes that say written by Kate Hewlett, which are written by somebody else, but I got paid to write that script. And then there are other episodes that I wrote that don't have my name on them. So it's super collaborative.
So explain that.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Why are you getting paid for something you didn't write?
Because you wrote one. So if you wrote one episode, you get paid for one episode and your name is attached to that one episode. But sometimes, occasionally it doesn't work. You don't have time to do that one. So you do a different one, or the showrunner will say, can you do a full rewrite of this person's script because maybe they were newer or they didn't quite nail it, or that you got a note from the network at the last moment that was like, what if we don't do that? And then you have to start all over again. So they'll say you have 2 days to go write a brand new script, but the other person, their name is still on it.
Okay, because they were the original person assigned to it, even though if somebody else takes it over later. But then might take somebody else's over and then you get pulled. Oh, that's kind of a bummer, though, if it's that episode that wins and you're like, I wrote that.
I know. But usually what the showrunner does is the showrunner chooses which scripts to submit for awards, and they will choose ones that were actually written by the person so that so the right people are getting credit often. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. And sometimes there was one show I worked on where the showrunner took half of every script. And so every single script was written by this person and Kate Hewlett, or this person and so-and-so. And they didn't write any of those scripts, but they got paid for half the script. So sometimes it's a way to make money in a show that doesn't have a high budget and you're not making much of a showrunner fee. So yeah, it's really interesting.
And so when you get brought onto a show, what do you do to prepare? Do you watch especially if it's been going on for a while, do you go and watch episodes?
Yeah.
How do you get yourself up and running in who these characters are?
So something like Corner Gas, which had been running for seasons and seasons and seasons, I watched a few episodes of the live action one, but it was quite different from the animated one. So I watched every episode of the animated show, and you make notes, and you make notes on the characters and their voices, and you get the voices in your head a bit, and what you kind of check out the structure of the episode a little bit, and you find it's sort of like investigative work, how does this show work and how do they tell these stories, and then you come up with your own pitches for episode ideas, and you bring those in.
Now, are you do you have access to reading the scripts for these shows to kind of get the style?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can do that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
It must be so wonderful. It'd be so great if working on a film, you could have a what is it, a writer's room for the filmmaker, because that would be so helpful to sometimes suss out your film with other people. Then you just go and have the daunting writing, but at least you know where you're going with it.
Yes. What was another really interesting, I worked on, Coronation Street. So at one point, CBC was going to do a spin-off of Coronation Street and do a Canadian version that had some crossover with characters. And I was in the writing room for this, and they flew us to Manchester.
Oh.
And we got to go and sit in. We saw the whole Coronation Street set and everything, and we got to sit in on the room. And that's been running for like 1,000 years. And so it had massive, massive table with all the writers. And they had one person who was taking notes, but the note taker actually put together the beats of the story for you and sort of did like a mini outline. And then you would get that and you just had to do the fun part.
Wow.
And that was fascinating to me too, because it's like, that to me is the hardest part.
Yeah.
Is actually really figuring out that the mechanics of the story. That's the hardest part for me.
Wow.
So it's interesting. It's always different, always a little different.
Yeah. And how did you get in? How did you get your first TV gig?
So it's, Norman Jewison, who just passed away, he created the Canadian Film Center. And that's where I went. I went there in 2010. And I had not done any television writing before that. I had only done a few plays, and I wrote a TV script. I wrote 2 TV scripts in order to apply, and I got in, and that was it. That was the beginning of it. And you just meet everybody. I got my first writing gig before I had even finished the program, and went right onto that. And I sort of, until COVID, I haven't stopped since. So
through that organization, you are pretty much in the pile of writers so that you can move from one television show to another pretty easily.
It's very competitive now. And, there are a lot of programs and they're spitting out a lot of writers who now know what to do. And the pool is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's less and less work.
Oh,
So it's difficult to get work for a lot of people. But I think, it's tricky. It's tricky in Canada. There are not a lot of networks. There is not a lot of work, and the same people get jobs over and over again. I've been lucky, and I know that it is luck in many situations. And, also you form relationships. There are people you want to work with over and over again. And I know when I put together a writer's room, I'm going to want to use certain people, and I'm going to have to remind myself to meet other people and not just give the same people the jobs. But when you find your people, you want to keep working with them.
Well, that's the art of networking is, the more that you put yourself out there and meet people, that's who you're going to. But like you just said, the challenge is to go outside of that box.
Absolutely. For a number of reasons, right? Because the other thing is, when I started writing, I was almost always the only female writer in the room. And that was kind of fun. Not going to lie. It's kind of fun when you're like, I'm the only female writer and I'm going to work twice as hard and, be twice as funny and prove this and prove that. But I mean, it was, looking back, I'm like, that's absurd. The way that it was even in 2010, it was all white men who really looked the same, had the same baseball cap and the same facial hair. And it was like, this is what television writers look like. And it just, inch by inch, it started to change, first with more female writers, and now getting so much better with diversity and showing pictures of your writer's room. That was something that started happening, opening the doors a little bit and being like, these are the writers, because sometimes you're writing a super diverse show and the writers are all white.
Yeah.
And nobody knows that that's going on. So I think it's getting better. It's weird right now because I feel like things are getting more divided as well. I feel like I don't want to get into it too much, but I do feel like white men are having a resurgence.
Oh.
It's like, already? Why is this happening? It's weird. I find that a little weird. It's like things got more and more and more diverse, and then they segregated. And now it's like okay to have an all-white writer's room again, and I don't know why that's happening. And I find that weird. And a lot of people at the top are still white men. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that on, I'm on a lot of film sets, and, when I share pictures and stuff, I love to do BTS pictures. And, it's funny, the comments I have gotten is, wow, an all-male crew.
Oh, yeah.
Or, wow, no diversity. Or, well, most of my sets definitely have diversity, but it is predominantly men and a couple females.
Yeah.
It's tough because it's just like you said, you create your crew based on who you know and your go-tos, and you tend to hire the same people. Unless they can't do it, then maybe you start to go outside the group, right? But it's hard to change that. And I was just thinking, because I'm down in San Diego, and I was thinking, yeah, I would love to hire more women crew, but all the people I know are in LA, and it's hard to, ship them down here. I think it's going to change, but it's going to take time.
Yeah. It's definitely changing, and I just hope it keeps going in the right direction and doesn't just split off into like diverse shows and white shows.
Right.
I just hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You just need more and more creators who are BIPOC, LGBTQ, female. You just need more people actually creating the shows and not constantly being teamed up with people who aren't that as well.
Right.
So that's very frustrating. I'm still being teamed up with people a lot, and I'm like, I've been at this for a while.
Yeah.
I find it a lot better in the States, but I don't know. I don't live there. I've had a much smoother ride on this AMC show. Working with AMC has been, it's been a long process. We've been in development for a long time, but it's been a joy, and I feel respected. And my writing partner, that he's relatively new to this, but it's his story, and they respect his voice and what he brings to the table. And yeah, it's been good.
Yeah. Well, change takes time. Years, lots of years. But I hope that we're getting somewhere sooner than later. And then I thought what we could do to leave the show is, could you give me or give us 3 tips for aspiring writers out there?
Yes. Am I allowed to swear?
Yes. Absolutely.
So the best piece of advice I ever got was from a writer named Adam Barkin, who said, write the shit draft. Write your shit draft. Do not keep going back and trying to fix the first 3 pages. Write the whole shit draft and finish the shit draft. Then you go back and you make it less shit. And then you go back and you make it even less shit. And by the time you have the least shitty draft, that's when you know you're ready. And I just love that, because I think what stops people is thinking it has to be good. This has to be good. This scene has to be perfect. And you stop. You end up just aborting the mission because you don't feel like you're good enough.
Uh-huh.
And it's hard work. It takes many, many, many drafts to make it good. So that's one. What would be another piece of advice? I think doing a writing program, if you're able to do that, I think doing something like the Film Center or taking online classes with someone amazing, Corey Mandel. I haven't even done his classes, but I heard the man speak for an hour, and I was like, changed my life. So if you find good teachers and you can do an online class, that's really helpful, or a program. For me, that helped with deadlines. And I guess also I would say, don't be afraid to write your own stories and do something your way. And just remember that what you bring to the table is your own voice and your own unique perspective on things. And don't try to mimic what other people are doing,
Uh-huh. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It's really nice to talk about writing. I usually do these for Stargate, and I talk about being an actor on Stargate, so it's nice to do a writing one. It's really nice.
Thank you so much for listening. I encourage you to get out there and make a film. Reach out to your local filmmakers group to get involved and connect. Please subscribe to the show if you like it, and follow me on Instagram at Tami Magaro. Until we meet again, what's your story?